The Roman story began at 1000 BC, where the Latins then called Romans established Rome. Little by little a small settlement on the hills continued to expand. Victory after victory. Conquest after conquest. Spreading to the furthest corners of the unknown world. A new order followed with new gods, a new language, and new kings. Under a new rule. Civilization in Europe, Africa and Asia were under the march of the imperial eagle. And its all enemies were defeated. The greatest of all empires was born. Rome became the capital of the world. Ruling for centuries, transforming the world through knowledge of the arts, science, and law. Its legacy would live long through the years of the worldwide change in our people. Roman generals victorious at thousands of battles were not forgotten. The passage of time will not affect them. They attain immortality through their heroic deeds. They were exceptional men. Heroes. Legends. They fought our world with sacrifices. They were true Romans.
It all began by the end of the 4th century in Common Era, at Rome. To be exact, December 12, 390. By that time the Roman Empire was permanently split into East and West, while the Byzantine Empire in the East thrived. Since the Western Roman Empire experienced a series of invasions, a declining economy, and poor leadership, I decided to change city. I went to Constantinople. During my fabulous years in Constantinople, the last Roman emperor of the West, Romulus Augustus, was overthrown by a Germanic prince named Odoacer. I would say by the beginning of the 5th century the Germanic kingdoms claimed the Roman lands. Roads and other public structures fell into disrepair. As to be expected, trade and commerce in the West declined. It was a complete mess. Honestly, I was very lucky and pleased about myself that I have changed city, otherwise I was in a complete disparate situation. Instead, here in Constantinople, the Byzantine emperors were very successful in keeping a powerful army. It is really a pleasure to live here, because as the West is repeatedly invaded, the East where I live now is succeeding in defending ourselves. Maybe, when you hear the word Byzantine, you would immediately think that it is another important empire after the Roman one. But, actually at that time we were called Romans, we were Romans. Now that you know that, I want to explain you briefly the East Roman Empire, before ending this interesting experience. The Byzantine leaders continued Roman law and traditions. The Byzantine Emperor Justinian, my favorite, is well known for codifying Roman laws. He made the Roman laws more simple, clear, and efficient. Even people that were not good on reading, they were able to read them. Also in the Byzantine Empire the ancient Greek and Roman cultures were practiced and continued. As the West went into decline, scholars in the East maintained great libraries and established schools for the study of ancient Greek and Roman history. I had got a manuscript of Justinian's Code, at the Library of Pergamon, on the Pergamon Acropolis. It is a full collection of laws and legal interpretations, developed under the sponsorship of the Byzantine Emperor, Justinian I, from the beginning of the 5th century, to the end of the 5th century. Strictly speaking, this manuscript is an advanced piece of technology, in the Roman jurisdiction. This really led to a perfect government that made history. Justinian Code was the first, and the only one that was really meant for the people. Many copies of the code was distributed in several libraries, as a good example for who needed. It was written in ancient Greek, that was the current language in the Byzantine Empire. I chose Justinian's code as my artifact, because it shows a perfect example how the code of a country should be, otherwise many problems can be produced if you do not have a very good code. I hope you have enjoyed this experience. I really wanted that you knew this particular experience, because it involved the city of Constantinople, the new Rome in the Byzantine Empire, practically the remainder of the Roman Empire, and the shift from a dependent empire, the Eastern one, to an independent brand new empire, the Byzantine Empire. In a cold day of 6th December in 1097, where I can't see anything because of the fog, all the four armies that we were waiting desperately, arrived here in Constantinople. Fortunately, these four armies formed a combined fighting force that numbered nearly 30,000. I think, this was finally the time to defeat the Muslim Turks. Wait, I'm too far ahead. I forgot to tell you the story that comes before December 1097. In April 1095, while the Emperor Alexius I Comnenus appealed to Pope Urban II for help in defending the Byzantine Empire, I joined the Crusaders. At that time the Crusaders were just introduced to the society from Pope Urban to secure his own power over the Church, and to unite the lords of Europe. I really wanted to be part of it so as to possibly earn a title. The Crusaders' goal is to retake the Holy Land from the Turks, whom were called infidels. After some years of training, I was recruited to the first crusade that ever existed. That was the best moment of my life I ever had. The first crusade was led by Godfrey of Bouillon and other French lords. After all, the four armies arrive in Constantinople in the cold December of 1097, where I began to speak. We start to march from Constantinople through the lands held by the Seljuk Turks, to Antioch. Along the way, we battled simple Turkic forces, but after a long siege, we have captured Antioch. Eventually, the disagreements over the rule of Antioch started to rise, so as slowing down our progress, and split our forces. However, it was not until August 1098 that we have reached Jerusalem. By then, we laid siege to Jerusalem for more than a month, before its keeper surrendered, but when Godfrey died, and Baldwin left Edessa, and became the first king of the Christian kingdom of Jerusalem, the armies started to do what they want, resulting in the complete failure of the expedition. As some soldiers stayed to keep fighting for the power of Europe over the Holy Land, most of us including me went home. As you saw, this experience was not so pleasant as the first one, but it was important that knew about it, because it shows the first crusade that led the beginning of several of others crusades over the same piece of land. The Holy Land. These crusaders are famous, because they were meant to be holy wars for the Holy Land, instead of normal wars for new lands. The word crusaders comes from the French croix, meaning cross. Pope Urban II called the people of Europe to put aside their differences and take up the cross, the symbol of Christianity, to reclaim the Holy Land. I had bring back with me my shield, with the Jerusalem cross, also known as Crusader's Cross, or the Five-Fold Cross, is a heraldic cross, or Christian symbol consisting of a large cross potent, surrounded by four smaller Greek crosses, one in each quadrant. It is not to be confused with the Lorraine cross, which has also been called the Jerusalem cross. The design originates with the coat of arms, worn by Godfrey of Bouillon during the First Crusade, and it remained in use as the armorial of the Kingdom of Jerusalem throughout its duration. As I was going back home from the Holy Land all defeated, in 2nd October of 1310, I have encountered few merchants that were headed to the Mali Empire. They called themselves Diula. Mali Empire? What is that? That is right, when they mentioned that Mali Empire I was so curious that eventually I went with them for my own sake. While I was traveling through the large lands and waters of earth, these merchants told me that this Mali Empire was founded about in 1230 after the Ghana Empire declined, and that it is the kingdom of the Mali. Then, they also said that the kingdom of Mali started farther east and farther south than the kingdom of Ghana. The Mali kingdom soon grew by conquering areas to the west and north. Ultimately, the Mali Empire controlled 400 cities, towns, and villages, and an estimated 20 million people, which today would equate to the population in all of medieval Europe. Interesting. As they were talking about this Mali Empire, I got every time more interested and curious. Finally, in 5th March of 1319, after a long trip, I have arrived in Niani, the capital of the Mali Empire, which was near the Mir gold fields. After a long rest, I have went outside to visit the city. And I have noticed that the buildings were constructed with Arabic architecture. Since there were these Arabic architectures, I thought that these people were Arabs, but eventually I found out that their king, Mansa Musa, with the help of Abu Ishaq al-Sahili, they have introduced these strange rectangular homes, with a dome as the roof. As you saw before, I'm a curious person. So as soon I found out who is the king of this Mali Empire, I went to visit him to know more information about this Mali Empire. It wasn't easy to reach him, but after a lot of effort I was able to reach him and talk with him, by arranging a dinner. During that interesting dinner, we have talked about our adventures, especially about his interesting adventure on his pilgrimage. In result, after the dinner he offered me to go to Timbuktu, one of the great cities in the Mali Empire, with him the next day. At the morning of the next day of February 1321, we were headed to Timbuktu. Once we were there on July 3rd of 1321, I was able to smell and see the beautiful goods that were traded within the city. It was amazing. That city was so rich and prosperous because of the trans-Saharan trade, and for its huge center of learning. After the great mosque was built in Timbuktu, many schools that taught the Quran opened, and the city became a center for learning. Ultimately, scholars from all over the Muslim world came to Timbuktu to study. After some years spent in Timbuktu, I have decided that was better to go home where all my relatives are living now, at Milano. So in September of 1410, I was headed to Milano. By the way, this experience was very important, because it shows one of the great empire of Africa, and the city Timbuktu one of the greatest cities of the Mali Empire. It gave prosperity. Then, from this experience I gained the knowledge of what is the Mali Empire, how it was founded, and who is the most famous king and what he did to be famous. An artifact that I have brought with me at home from Mali Empire is some gold that was traded within the empire and other kingdoms that are in that area. This gold is one of the most important source of money in the Mali Empire. As matter of fact, the gold that you see in the picture is traded with the traders that were going out, and with also the salt, iron, and ivory. As matter of fact, Mali had followed the example of trading gold as the previous empire did, the Ghana one. Gold had been, and still is, a super wealthy resource for both of the empires. Gold is practically traded from Niani, which is near the pure gold fields throughout the empire. I selected this item from the others that I could select, because gold had played an even more important role in the Mali Empire than the Ghana Empire. In fact, Niani was founded right next to the pure gold fields, as the main industry of gold, and then traded from Timbuktu throughout the trans-Saharan trade. Salt could have been also a good artifact, because it had also played a good role in the prosperity of Mali Empire, but gold was the foundations of currency in Africa. After another long, boring, and dangerous trip in the Mediterranean, Ionian, and Adriatic seas, I was able to reach Venice, the first city-state. Venice was in the best position for trade with the East. As early times of 1000 Common Era, Venice had already developed a strong economy by carrying goods by ship between Europe and the Byzantine Empire. By the way, many Venetian merchants became very rich. However, after I got off the boat, I was already headed to Milano. My parents were waiting me. In May 7th of 1454, I finally reached my parents' house. I was very happy to see them, and they too. As soon I reached Milano, I saw that something changed in people's attitude, ethics, and etc. In fact, I was right. As the Middle Ages drew to a close, the stage was set for new ideas and new alliances. Europe was slowly emerging from a long period of economic and cultural decline. The population was growing, and Italy was a place that was ripe for prosperity and change. It seems that we are regaining the state of the Roman Empire. In contrast of the medieval era, this era is full of ideas, inventions, self-respect, and etc. I would say that this is a rebirth era. Naturally, as Milan grew, and other city-states such as Naples, Florence, and Rome, they struggled over political power. New classes were established. Instead of the feudal system of peasants and nobles, they were the grandi, the old ruling class of the nobility, and the popolo, the people ruling. Leaving out the other city-states, Milan is a city located on the plains in northern part of Italy. Milan had gained the reputation as the most aggressive of the Italian city-states. It was ruled by the Visconti family, and then the Sforza family at that time, but now it is ruled by the Ludovico il Moro. Then, Milan has also a strong military force that conquered most of northern Italy. The army very nearly conquered Florence as well. However, under the rule of Francesco Sforza, Milan and Florence joined together against the expansion of Venice. Sforza and Cosimo de' Medici established a friendship that would maintain a balance of power between them in the north, and keep the mountain passes open for the use of traders from Florence. The two leaders signed the Peace of Lodi, in 1454 Common Era, which established their borders. Finally, Milan would also be known for its support of the arts. Lodovico il Moro, who ruled Milan in 1480 CE, supported the artist Leonardo da Vinci for almost 20 years. He also created ambitious building plans for canals and irrigation, and encouraged farmers to grow new crops such as rice. Before leaving you, I would like that you realize the importance of the city-state, or Milano. Unlike to the other city-states such as Venice, Rome, and etc., Milano is very famous of its reputation of being one of the most aggressive Italian city-states, but especially Milano is also reputed to be a big supporter of arts, such as Lodovico il Moro did with Leonardo da Vinci. In addition to what I said, Milano is always an historical place, because it is one of the most important 5 city-states that lead the rebirth era. Maybe without Milano, or Venice and etc., we would be probably less advanced. So, I decided to go to Milano for this experience, because first I was born there, and second, as I said before, I wanted to be part and learn how Milano led the rebirth era. I think this is the most important experience that I ever had. The Treaty of Lodi, or the Peace of Lodi, is my artifact for this experience. The Treaty of Lodi is a paper or a contract, if we want to put it that way, that established a peace agreement between Milan, Naples, and Florence, signed on April 9, 1454, at Lodi in Lombardy, on the banks of the Adda. Its purpose was to put an end to the long struggles between expansive Milan, under Filippo Maria Visconti, and Venice in the Terra Firma, which had produced a single decisive Venetian victory, at the Battle of Niclodio in 1427, in which the Venetian ally was Florence, but had resulted in no lasting peace. The historical importance for this time period is that it was the time that Europe restarted to reborn, in result bringing us in this time period, where technology and self-respect is very considered. However, the impact that the Treaty of Lodi had on the people and society, was bringing order in the struggles of the expansive Milan, by establishing a permanent boundaries between Milanese and Venetian territories in northern Italy. In other words, it had a good impact on the people, because the struggles between the city-states ceased. In my point of view, it is a very important document in the history of Milano. Unlike of inventions, sculptures and etc. that I could have chosen, this document made history. As matter of fact, is history.